Oh, we're live.
There? Oh, my.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Hello and welcome to the Sac Off podcast. Sorry for the delay. My phone, which I'm using this time, was a little bit slow on showing live. Anyways, we are back again talking about the Sacramento Kings and all the 200 plus assistants and former coaches and college coaches and a bunch of other candidates. They're interviewing for the head coaching job.
We're talking
Two
about you,
hours from,
basically, everyone. If you're
yeah.
listening, you're getting an interview.
2 hours from now, I'll be getting an interview, and then I think 30 minutes after that, Oscar's getting interviewed for the job. So, you know, we got some time, but it's gonna be fun. So
They're nice.
before we,
They said that I can work from home and do it, so that's nice.
oh, that's beautiful. I mean, and you wouldn't get in arguments with Boogie, and
Oh
that
no,
seems like it would work.
no, we'll just
So,
share gifs and emojis. I'll
yes,
coach by emojis, drop emojis.
yes, I'm a big fan of that. So on today's show, obviously, we're gonna talk about all the different candidates that are out there, and I mean, one thing we will start off with, because entering off season, there were several jobs open. You had Washington open, you had Minnesota open. I'm blanking on. You had Phoenix open. All three jobs have been taken up. So Scott Brooks off the market, Tom Thibodeau off the market, Earl Watson, Phoenix kept him. So, what are your thoughts on some of those moves and what it means for the Kings?
And the Nets as well, Atkinson,
The Nets, yeah,
and
Atkin,
Kenny Atkinson. So,
yeah.
by the sounds of things, the Kings never had a chance with Tibbs. He always wanted the Minnesota job because they didn't have a GM as well. So it's kind of interesting. Like the Kings have got kind of, or part of the reason why the Kings have been bad or with their coaching and front office issues is because they've kind of had separation between those two things and hired a coach before the GM, where I guess it's kind of worked out for Minnesota doing it that way round, where they get someone of kind of Tibbs' stature. It'll be interesting what he does as a GM. It's worked well, I think, with um, the Pistons and not so well with the Clippers. Having the coach also in charge of personnel, maybe him being out of the league for a year and traveling around could maybe help. Like he has a good idea of like seeing most players in person, which is kind of useful, and how they train. So that's like a really good insight for him. But obviously, there's kind of like all the cat minutia and stuff like that we kind of talk about being an issue with um, Vlade, but it's going to be even more so with Tibbs, where he has to coach as well as be a GM. Obviously, I think they brought over um, kind of a GM-like person from I can't recall where he came from, um, but they have someone kind of in place for that. So it's not completely on him, but obviously he'll be leading the direction there. Um, I think Brooks kind of fits Washington somewhat um, in terms of kind of where they are, like in their progression. They're kind of similar to um, the Thunder a couple of years ago, I guess, in terms of like Beal and Wall. Wall maybe can make him like. I think Wall is. I really like Wall as a point guard, and obviously they're going to be able to create lots of. They're just going to let them be isolation beasts and pick and roll with Gortat. I think that kind of works. Kenny Atkinson, I really like that hire, especially as they're going to let him have plenty of time, and because they're not really going to be expected to do much. So that's kind of a nice hire where, and I think Atlanta have done a really good job of growing, like building from not much, um, and kind of finding younger players. I know Kent Bazemore and some of the younger players have cited Kenny Atkinson as being a big reason of their development. So if he can kind of nurture some like later round picks or just uh, ba- uh, bargain basement deal free agents, that's probably going to be the only way in which Brooklyn can be even mildly competitive. So that kind of helps that he's kind of done that to a certain extent with players, but I guess the difference being that Atlanta has kind of like elite talent, and then they're just kind of finding complementary pieces where Brooklyn, they kind of need to find a point guard, two guard, probably a wing, and a center. Oh no, not a center. So yeah, they just got really a center and a big next to them. So, and really, you would probably want to have like another good big in that rotation. But I probably like the Kenny Atkinson one the most. But then also there's like the least amount of risk with that job as a coach, um, and as a GM hiring a coach. So you can be kind of a bit more uh, kind of creative, I think. What's your thoughts on those hires?
I mean, reading more and more on Atkinson, like I really, really like the coach and what he does. Brooklyn, I do kind of because he's a guy who develops a lot of young talent. I do wonder with their pick situation, how much young talent he's going to have there to work with. As long as they give him time, it's a better situation. But I don't know. I would have liked to
He
see him
needs
go
4 years, though, right? He needs four
Yeah,
years.
he needs. Yeah, I
And you're
would have liked to
hoping
see
to
him
get
go
like,
somewhere where there was a lot of young talent. But
so maybe their hope is like they find like something with a second round pick and like some undrafted guys, and then maybe you ship out Thad or um and try and get like a pick later in like 2 years, and you try and get like some younger talent. I guess that's like the plan. Um, but we're not really going to know how good he is for like 3 years, really, 4 years,
yeah,
which is a shame. But
yeah,
it's probably the best. Like, there's probably a good way to start your coaching career where you can make mistakes and they're not going to be under the microscope as much, and you can kind of experiment a bit with stuff and see how it works, and not just have it in kind of your brain. But should we move on to some of the myriad of coaching candidates?
yeah. I mean, it's going to take some time with all the coaches, so we should probably start now.
Well, we've kind of gone through a couple of guys already, so we can be a bit shorter on them, like the Kevin McHale's and the Vinny Del Negros, even the Messinas. But there's some newer names, because obviously we didn't talk about 20 people last time.
No, no, we did not. Yeah, so
Should
I'm
we
gonna
just?
look. Yeah,
So we got a
yeah,
list. It's just a random order, so we'll have ups and downs.
yeah. There'll be some downs. So one name that's been thrown around, Luke Walton. And what the stuff that's been talked about him is he likes Northern California, wants to try and stay in the area because he was teammates with Vlade at one point, and they have a pretty solid relationship. So he's been someone that's thrown around.
He's
I
always
mean,
played in the West Coast, hasn't he?
yeah,
And has a young family, so that would, I know, lots of kind of the talk around Sacramento is like players don't want to play there, but then you've seen kind of Darren Collison, Rudy Gay, players with like young families like it there. So then maybe that's like an appeal to him to be in kind of somewhere a bit calmer.
yeah, definitely.
Um, and do we know when he would be able to interview? Is it when Golden State progress, and then there's a little gap?
Yeah, I think because I thought there was the report that they already talked to him, but no, never mind. That was Luke Walton talking to the Knicks, but Golden State said they didn't grant permission.
Okay.
So, so I think right now it's going to be until Golden State is out or they're able to grant permission during a break.
Yeah, I'd imagine they'll be able to during the breaks. It's not like an assistant coach has a huge amount of like to spend like one day and is not going far um, from Oakland to Sacramento.
Yeah,
Uh, or I mean, like even Vlade can go down, and then obviously Vlade has a relationship with him already, so maybe they don't even need to do it in person. But
yeah,
maybe it's better, and maybe that's the way that they want to do it in person to kind of show the new arena and stuff like that.
yeah. I think it'll definitely be in person with having him come down, seeing the arena progress where it's at, and so I don't know. But like you mentioned, it's close by. Like, so I could see it being done during a break easily.
So what do you think of Wharton? Because I guess he's a really hard evaluation in terms of it was really late in the preseason when he was going to start coaching, so we don't really know what impact he's had. I don't think he's been tremendous in his rotations, and obviously he's got just immense talent and a very closely knit team. So there's not a huge amount of progression I think we can cite on him, but obviously he did a good job of not being too big a road bump in the way. I guess the optimistic thing would be he's been around a very successful team, and there, I think elements of, having talked to the Knicks, elements of the triangle, and there's elements of the triangle in Golden State's offense. I think that would work with DeMarcus Cousins, where you want to play it in the post, and then you have kind of motion movement and organic playmaking, kind of moving around. So that'd be kind of interesting, maybe. But it's just kind of like a blind hire. And it was interesting I don't think he really. Well, clearly most teams weren't interested in him because they didn't really entertain him.
Yeah, I mean that's like, is he the substitute teacher who just came in, let players do what they needed to do, and was successful, or are we talking about a coach who was in a very fortunate situation, but is a good X's and O's guy, can relate to players and connect with them, and be a good coach? And it's really such an unknown unless you're able to sit down and talk to him and find out his strategies, his plans. It's kind of a guessing game from the outside.
Yeah, it's a really tough one. And it's interesting because like half a year ago, everyone thought he would be kind of clamoring for any job. Or he would be like the hot ticket, and then like Kenny Atkinson out of nowhere was the first name off the board. So it's just kind of interesting, and maybe that's maybe it's timing wise where Brooklyn just wanted to get it done with sooner than later, and I was about to say prepare for the draft, but they've got no reason to prepare for it. But maybe they just wanted to kind of get it over and done with, or maybe they just knew he didn't want to move to New York, or if he was going to move to New York, it would be to the Knicks. But it's just, I think it's just kind of a blind hire. I think it helps him being a former player with Boogie, and quite recently a player that maybe helps in terms of player-coach dynamic, and knowing what a kind of a more modern player goes through, and then you have kind of like the whole staff and and players are all former players, all relatively young. So I can imagine that being kind of like quite progressive and open, and having Vlad in his having played together, that kind of creates already kind of like a synergy and an openness, and they've shared kind of mutual experiences that probably helps in terms of going through resolving conflicts and stuff like that. So I think on an interpersonal level, I think he makes he makes really good sense. And then obviously, I think all the players will respect him just because of the success he's had, both, and they will know him as a player as well. So I think that all kind of works. But yeah, it's just a question mark on what he'll run, and kind of how smart he is. I think his in-game decisions, like his rotations, were bad. But that's the same with Malone. I thought he had pretty bad rotations at times. And then offensively, we saw loads of Rudy Gay ISOs with him. But then if we could have him back, we could do that in a second. So I think X's and O's are maybe pushed a bit too hard in terms of this, where there's not really that many great coaches in that regard. But at least Walton comes from a good heritage.
Yeah.
In that regard.
So
it can't get that bad. Hopefully it can't be that bad with Luke Walton, is I guess the hope.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say on him, or should we move on?
I mean, it's just, as we said, just so much of an unknown, but I'll take an unknown.
It'd be exciting, though. It'd definitely be exciting.
Yeah,
I think he would be like an easy sell to the players, to the fans. I think we wouldn't really have to worry about kind of drama much, whereas maybe some of these names you would. But yeah, it's just, and I think it's having a West Coast and the whole arena with the farmers market and stuff like that, everything being homegrown. I don't know, maybe that they can pitch that as kind of their whole media kind of thing seems to be around being local and stuff like that. So I don't know. But should we move on to Messina, who we talked about last week a bit?
Messina, Monty Williams.
Has Messina had many interviews? Have you seen? Kind of
I think I was
rumory.
reading that he was a candidate for Atlanta, or not Atlanta, excuse me, for Brooklyn, but
Okay.
then, right, I guess that talk kind of died, and right now I guess he's just focused on the playoffs.
Yeah, so I guess he'll be another guy where you have to wait until either the Spurs progress, so there's a little gap, um, or they get knocked out. So that'd be. But I think he'd be a guy. As we said last week, he had interest in the King's job before, so then at least there's some familiar. I think it was 2 years ago, so there's some familiarity with at least 4 or 5 of the roster, and he would have gone through that kind of process of, because I guess also we have to think about this is like these guys have to kind of make a pitch and get an idea of the roster, who they'd want to keep, who they want to move, how they would play guys. So it's not just about time for the Kings to evaluate, but also for the coaches to kind of get their proposals out. So maybe that's kind of like a benefit to this being a bit of a slower and less competitive coaching competition, is that you're going to get maybe better proposals and more thought out proposals to go through. And I think we should quickly note that James Ham reported that none of these coaching leaks have come from the Kings. They're all coming from elsewhere. The Kings aren't saying anything. So it's quite similar to free agency, where it was all just agent talk. And then Vlade came out and was like, yeah, half of those, or most of those names, we never gave a contract offered to. Just Wesley Matthews and Bagnani are the two that they didn't sign. So, and that could be the Kings allowing them to say that, so that they butter up the few coaching agents there are, and also like, oh, we'll say that Mike Woodson or whoever it is coming to interview the Kings, and then you get to also, then we'll let you get like Messina in the room or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't think
just
there's really much to add on Messina that we didn't talk about last week. Or have you got any new thoughts on him?
No, I think we've summarized him well. Yeah. So the next coach, Monty Williams, who I think many know, obviously he lost his wife this year, so he's been out. He's been taking some time off for a while. Former New Orleans coach, so there's a lot to him.
Yeah, and he was with the which staff this year? I think the Thunder staff this
Yeah, he was
year,
with OKC.
as an assistant. So that kind of helps kind of moving around to a couple of seeing kind of a more offensive-minded coach and working with him. I think you would say he did a pretty good job in New Orleans considering this past year. Not the greatest X's and O's guy, but I think he obviously connected well with the players in New Orleans, and kind of got. And I think he's good at least focusing a team around a star. He did that in Anthony Davis, and I think he would see the value of doing that in Cousins as well.
Yeah,
So that'd be kind of one
and
thing.
another,
Maybe he
yeah,
doesn't fit the pace, kind of like if the ownership kind of. I don't know if that's still going to be a priority or if that was just a Pete D'Alessandro kind of media push. But I don't think he fits that as much.
yeah. Well, another thing on him is his relationship with Ryan Anderson, who obviously gonna be free agent next year. But they became very close, especially Anderson and Monty Williams' wife. But so I feel like that relationship is strong, and I don't know,
Because
maybe the
Anderson's
Kings.
wife passed away, didn't she? In
Well,
May.
yeah, but when Ryan Anderson's fiance passed away, I think he lived with Monty
Yeah.
Williams and his wife at the time. So Monty Williams and Anderson have a very, very close relationship. So I feel like who knows, maybe the Kings see that, and if things go well with Monty, maybe they make a bigger, even bigger run at Ryan Anderson.
And we kind of talked about that last week with a couple of coaches about Caspi, and I think it was Caspi and um, was it Messina even? There was one, maybe it was Blatt. There's one coach that had like oh no, it was Kevin McHale.
Blatt, well,
Um,
Blatt, yeah, that's
and
that
Kevin
different.
McHale. Yeah.
Yeah,
And just like if you have already a player on your side, then you're halfway to getting the locker room on your side. So yeah, I think it would be a kind of a safe pick, and not a really exciting one, but I think one with a pretty like reasonable floor. So I wouldn't hate it, but I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't really like. It wouldn't get me too exciting, but I would understand it quite a bit. Have you got any more thoughts on Monty?
I mean, in terms of you mentioned safe, like he's a coach who, I mean, players across the NBA absolutely adore. We've seen Kevin Durant, LeBron James, many talk about him. So yeah, I feel like safe's an accurate term there.
Yeah, he might be like a good recruiting tool. Kind of Kings need that, and yeah, I don't think he's going to like elevate the roster, but I think he's not going to get the worst out of it that we've seen this last year.
Well, no, like one thing I just add is if he can bring the players together, get them to buy in, and trust the coach, I feel like that's a pretty significant, like, because that was one issue with the team last year, and I think it cost them a few wins. So maybe we're talking about a 34-win team being a 40-win team.
Well, they should have been a mid-40 win team this year.
Yeah.
Should we move on to someone that I think now has been ruled out? I think James Ham said that then they're not going to get close, and that's Jeff Van Gundy.
Yeah.
Shall we really talk about him then? If has he been officially ruled out, or?
I don't think he's been officially rolled out, but
Okay.
there's been talk about his interest in Houston,
Okay.
but basically I think Sacramento no chance. So.
And that kind of makes sense. I think if he can go somewhere where, like he'll probably get a lot more time there and slightly better recruiting and maybe a bit more kind of personnel say, because they're a bit more open and at least they love big names, so they'll probably pay out for him as well. Whereas the Kings might be a little bit hard up on money, paying two coaches quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
Do you want to go on to
Udoka?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Udoka, we talked a little bit on the last podcast. Young Spurs assistant, NBA career through went through the D League. Didn't have a very long NBA career. But, has worked his way up, well respected around the NBA. He's talked about one of the rising names, and I forgot who reported it, but he was a finalist for the Brooklyn job before Kenny Atkinson got it.
And yeah, that kind of makes sense that they were kind of going after those two guys. As like they're kind of, you think they've got kind of like a similar learning curve in terms of quite young. Well, Udoka's even younger. So yeah, I think he would be interesting. I mean, again, it's kind of like Luke Walton, where you don't really know what you're getting, but he's coming from like a good place, so there's optimism there. And kind of again like a more recent player as well, so there's maybe a better chance of him getting along with the players.
Yeah.
I think there's also been a report that there's like at least two college coaches are targets. Have you got any ideas of who they may be?
I've looked. I have not been able to find anything on that. And I think we can say this. It's not Calipari.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Yeah. So that's the one tough is finding out who it is. I think I don't know. I don't think they'll go to the college ranks. It's just.
I mean, I think it's interesting whether they go for. It'd be kind of interesting if they did, but I don't really know if there's not like the candidate there was last year, where like an obvious guy that would come up.
Yeah.
But you never know. Maybe they're looking around. They've obviously found someone kind of interesting with the D League team, so they obviously are kind of looking for innovative coaching and schemes and stuff. And they kind of reined Reno big Longhorns in a bit this year, and then they've been really successful. So they've kind of been in between the two styles, and it's worked a bit better. But yeah, I've got no idea who the coaching guy would. So move on to Sam Mitchell, who I think James Ham has kind of basically under his breath said it's not going to happen.
Well, that's relieving.
Yeah. I guess maybe it's just. I guess for Vlade, there's no risk in if he is coming in for an interview, just being like trying to get as many people's opinions on the roster and what direction they would take it in. So maybe like a massive brainstorming session, and also some of these guys could be assistants as well. Don't forget that.
You just hit on it. Like I feel like you mentioned the gathering information, but also this could be just, as you said, getting more information on guys, finding out maybe this guy could be an assistant for your staff.
Yeah.
You find out what coaches around the league or guys you're interviewing that he has a good relationship with, so you're already working ahead, planning ahead on that.
Yeah, if you got like say a Vinny Del Negro or a Patrick Ewing as your assistant coaches, and with a Kevin McHale or a Luke Walton, especially if you have a Luke Walton, a Sam Mitchell, and a Vinny Del Negro would be really useful for him, just to have kind of some guys that have been through it and a bit more experienced. So that would be like a really useful thing. So hopefully that's the plan with Sam Mitchell. Let's pray.
Well, I'm hoping that's the plan with a few others on this list.
Hopefully, like half of these interviews are after they announce a head coach.
So
we've talked enough about Vinny Del Negro, haven't we? It's odd that he's not at the bottom of the candidate list. Like, it's pretty crazy that you can see tweets where they list like 4 coaches and Vinny Del Negro, and it's like, yeah, Vinny Del Negro wouldn't be a bad choice out of that group. I think that's the most we have to say about that.
So next one, Clippers assistant, former Knicks and Hawks coach Mike Woodson.
I know that I asked Russo about him, and he said you wouldn't be happy. So not glowing reviews. He was pretty like okay as a coach before though. And then obviously if Rondo stays, he would maybe know how to get the most out of him being with Clippers at the moment and a staff that use Rondo a lot. I guess that would be the upside. I don't know a huge amount about him personally. Have you got any thoughts on Woodson?
My summary of Woodson is I think he'd be better than Mitchell and Mark Jackson. That's about it.
Okay.
And that's so I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel
for
positivity.
All right, we'll move on to another guy I think would be worse as well, Brian Shaw. God, I'd take Brian Shaw. Like I think he's a guy that would just completely not work. The way in which the team completely quit on him in Denver, and the way he just threw guys under the bus. He kind of did the similar things to George Karl in the media of anytime a player did something positive, he would rip them. And I think he blame players of tanking, and like they had a box to put their mobile phones in.
Yep.
He doesn't seem like a very
he was pretty much universally hated.
Yeah. So again, maybe he can be like the bad cop assistant coach, maybe the one that everyone joins up to hate. Maybe that'll be his role. Look after the mobile phones during the game. Dust out that box.
It was just, I really hope it's similar, because if you're seriously looking into him, you're completely ignoring all the issues the team had last season with Karl, and just ignorant to what happened in Denver with Shaw.
Maybe they just want to talk to him about that experience and just try and figure out, okay, from his point of view, what went wrong, and see how they can learn from other mistakes. Because they're bringing in a lot of coaches that made mistakes. So I'm gonna go for a couple more in a little bit.
Yeah. So we talked about Shaw. That's worst case scenario. If that happens, this
Move
podcast there's
move
gonna
the
be a
team
lot
to
of
Seattle.
yeah. It's,
Just
I don't want to think
dig up
about
the
it.
stadium, dig up the arena. Just have 20, like, I don't know, have like contemporary dance in there all year.
Yeah, it's
Just the cheerleaders. You don't. Another guy, Mark Jackson. I think he's another guy where they're not going to hire him. He was kind of rumored around the Ty Corbin hiring time, where he had that infamous meeting with Boogie and uh, Vivek. But I think there's been kind of a lot of talk that he's not happening. Really, they're not that interested. Um, but we'll see. And that could be again like another. I'm sure he's got probably a pretty big time agent, so that could be another. Oh, he hasn't got an interview for a while. If we give him an interview, or if you give him an interview, then at least it can look like he didn't go like another season without a head coaching job interview. That's kind of how
yeah.
that feels to me.
So yeah, I think you put it well. It's like, I mean, big agent. So his agent may represent multiple guys Kings interviews. So you get a bigger fish that you want to interview, and in return, you interview Jackson, so his name can be mentioned. And
I'm pretty sure there's only like 4 or 5 head coaching agents. Really,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure I've like read or heard that somewhere. That there's not really many.
yeah. And just one more thing on him is just as you mentioned, it's possibility for him is very low because like Jason Jones said, as of now, Kings direction Kings are going, talks they're having. Mark Jackson isn't happening.
Okay. Should we move on to David Blatt, who I think's interesting in terms of X's and O's. I just don't think he would work as. Um, I think it's just the wrong team for him. He even needs to go with like a younger team, like how the Cavs were going to be. Um, whereas the Kings aren't really like that, and I just don't think his ego would work well. Um, but I think he showed, at least on the court, he showed kind of like a willingness to adapt to personnel. So that, like, I think on the court, he's really intriguing. Just if he was, and maybe he would be a good guy to be an assistant. Um, I think him with Luke Walton would actually be like a really good pairing because they run, at least in Europe, Blatt's offense is pretty similar to some of the stuff that uh, Golden State run, so kind of like triangle slash Princeton. So he would be like a really interesting guy to have as an assistant.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think you might like young because you mentioned his ego. So I feel like a young team where it's. I mean, there's no alpha dog like, or I don't want to say the but guy who draws the attention. You know, it's the center of the team like a DeMarcus Cousins or LeBron James. It just didn't seem something that he fit well with. So again, just not a fit for Sacramento.
It'd be interesting if you would take an assistant job, or if he would just go back to Europe and. Um, but maybe he wouldn't want to go back to Europe and see that as kind of like losing. So it'd be interesting if he took an assistant job. I think that would be a great hire if you got him as an assistant. Personally, I think
Yeah,
that'd be really fun. Um, and then maybe going to kind of a place where there are like around the league, like the Kings are seen as like a crazy locker room. So if he went there and they were successful and he was part of the reason they're successful, that would kind of get rid of that stigma for him. So maybe that would be one incentive for him to take an assistant role there. Should we move on to Hornacek,
yeah,
Suns coach, former Suns coach? What do you think of? We talked about him briefly, didn't we? Um,
yeah. We had. I think we spent a few minutes talking about it. Basically, had a good year in Phoenix previous year, and then he wasn't part of the rebuilding efforts. He didn't go in that direction. So they fired him, and we mentioned that Earl Watson's the coach there now. So I don't know, it could be he showed he can be a successful coach with a young team and some. I mean, he had Markeith Morris, so there's some players there. You know, he has some managed personalities. So I feel like that's a quality that would be nice for Sacramento. He would be at the top of the list, but I mean, he's not. He's a candidate who, if he were hired, you could say that's a solid hire. It's not.
he would probably be a reason why maybe if they hired him, maybe Seth Curry would stay. Um, whether on the same deal or not would be interesting, but because he would play a lot, you'd see a lot of I would assume he'd still want to stick with like the multiple ball handlers, point guards type system, um, which would be kind of interesting. I think you would. Then he's not. I don't think him or Collison are ideal to play the two really, just because you have such a bad matchup in terms of defending like most of the twos in the Western Conference, just so much bigger and can shoot over or take them off the drip, shoot over them, take them off the dribble, and post them up, and like just dunk over them. So it's an issue defensively, but maybe they draft another point guard, whether it's like Jamal Murray or someone. So that'd be kind of interesting and like maybe a better solution to the two guard issue that the Kings eternally have. Um, but yeah, I think there's probably, I don't think you can kind of isolate him from the. I guess it's hard to do you like isolate him from the ownership and like the players they had with the Suns, but there was a lot of players that didn't enjoy that. Obviously, the Morris twins, Goran Dragic. I guess Isaiah was pretty happy to leave when he did. So they've had a lot of players leave and be happy to be leaving. I'm not sure if we can make him complete. And he did that thing where it's like one tech and you're out for the game and stuff like that. And that was to kind of control players. And I mean, Boogie doesn't really make this. Isn't as egregious in his technicals, but he can be pretty bad in terms of like some of the ones he gives away. So maybe that wouldn't be in the best interest. Should we move on to, I think, another person we talked about, Patrick Ewing. Have you got any new thoughts on him?
I I don't know about. It's just I mean I haven't read much about him, so I mean, it's all I haven't read a lot of reports about one of he's a top guy for that NBA is drawn to. I think highly of. I mean, obviously great player, but I don't know how good of a coach he is.
I think he could be again like another, maybe an assistant guy, and you like maybe they see him as, and if you get like Kevin McHale, and then you have Ewing as an assistant, you'd be like, okay, in 4 years, then you're going to be the head coach after McHale hangs his boots, something
And
like
with
that.
that,
Maybe.
you'd have two guys who could relate to Boogie in a great way.
Yeah, and that would be kind of like fun coaching stuff. But yeah, again, he's like a complete mystery in terms of on the court what he'll do. Other than you'd assume it'll be kind of post-centric.
Yeah, it would. And if I'm going to take a risk of someone I don't know, I'll go with one of the assistants or another assistant.
Yeah. Nate McMillan, have you got any thoughts on him? He's someone I don't really know a huge amount about.
McMillan, I mean, I'm trying to, and my internet's been crashing. So, but I mean, I think we talked a little bit about him in the last podcast. I feel like he's on the same tier as Mike Woodson in a way.
Okay.
I mean, because I think his time excuse me, I'm mixing up words. His time with Portland, it didn't go that well, and now he's working with Indiana now as an assistant. And I know he has said until the playoffs are over, he's not going to be doing interviews.
Okay.
So that if you want to wait, and I don't think he's the type of coach who you're going to wait on for as a potential head coach.
But I think he's been highly spoken of with the Pacers, and obviously we talked about last time. He's seen kind of a transition of styles there, so that's kind of at least optimistic in the terms of it doesn't really matter what the personnel is. Maybe he'll play to the strengths of that, which is kind of a nice thing. Should we move on?
Yeah, Jay. I'm not going to get his name right again. Laranga.
Yeah, that sounds pretty.
Larinaga.
Right.
There we go. Larinaga.
Okay. Have you got any thoughts on him? He's another guy I just really don't know much about at all.
And it's all comes from reading, but he's kind of starting to reach that Kenny Atkinson stuff. Where reading more and more about his ability to connect and develop young players is really drawing me in. Obviously, you don't know how he'll do like in a head coaching position of like if he throws players under the bus or what, but his ability to connect and develop with players, I like. Working under Brad Stevens, I feel has helped, and as mentioned on the last podcast, he was also a finalist for Boston's head coaching job before they hired Stevens, and they still kept him on. So it'd be nice.
What'd be interesting about him is obviously Boston are always in talks about a Boogie trade, and then if you were going to, so I think just to kind of clarify Boogie trade, I think James Ham is saying is like they're open to a trade, but it's got to like blow them away. And so if you have him, at least he would know about all the Celtics players and whether they're worth it or not, and like how many you need and who would work. And then also, you would imagine that there's been internal conversations with the Celtics saying like, oh, if we got Boogie, what we would do. And then they've also had kind of like a lot of big men. And then if Boogie were to go, you would probably think you would have kind of a more of a bigger rotation of bigs with Willie Cauley-Stein, Kufos, whether it's Ryan Anderson, whoever else you get. So you'd have more of a rotation similar to the Celtics, whereas with Boogie there, he's going to be taking up 36 odd minutes every game. So it's slightly different to what the Celtics are doing.
Yeah. So I mean, I think if I were to put him amongst the other guys, I think he'd be my top 3 or 4 for head coach candidates that I'd want.
I think he'd be at least like an exciting one, but that's partly because you just don't know what he'll do. And there's like coming from a place that it is maybe overperforming, so then that kind of at least increases optimism. And so a place that's over like beating expectations, and then you give someone from that coaching staff an all-star, then maybe they can kind of at least meet expectations for the Kings. That would be nice.
Yeah. So,
another assistant is next one, David Fizdale, the Heat.
Yeah, I have no clue about him. I don't. Do you know anything about him?
I haven't really asked Heat Twitter because they're awful. So I don't have much of an idea either. So yeah, I guess like again comes from like, yeah, I guess you can have the same like kind of interest in terms of like they've changed scheme a couple of times since he's been there, and then obviously just like winning pedigree, so that kind of helps. He married his wife in San Diego, so that's nice.
Oh, there you go. It's born in LA. So I mean, well, and also like I'll say he's under Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra. You know, I think that's a good place for young coaches to learn. So we should have picked up some stuff there. Let's see. From 2014, he promoted Fizdale to assistant head coach. So, I mean, he's the number 2 guy in Houston. What is it? I just want to find out what this is. Heath Fizdale 2 busy to ride coaching carousel. So this is just about how he likes being assistant coach, but this is back in 2014. So I'd assume he's ready to be a head coach by now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we got one more name of a candidate. Then there's one more I think we should bring up as well, an internal one. But Mike Brown. Yeah, we done with him then. And then Corius Williamson is another guy. I think we kind of talked about if Carl were to get fired, there's a lot of talk about him being the interim. And obviously Vlade likes people he's used to and trusts. I think Corius Williamson is someone he trusts. And Boogie trusts him as well. Obviously, having worked with Boogie a long time, he's been with probably must be the longest standing Kings employee. That's not DeMarcus Cousins. He may have more. I wonder if he's sat on the bench more than Jason Thompson has. So that'd be interesting stat. But I don't think you could rule him out. But I think either way he'll be on the Kings staff. I don't think they'll get rid of him. Whether
I think he's
head coach or not.
I'm trying to. Did he when he came before he came to Sacramento assistant? Where was he before?
I'm not sure. I think he may have just been I think he may have come straight from playing.
Okay, he was Central Arkansas.
Okay.
So was he, and I just want to see if he was a head coach there. Yeah,
And then I think
so
we're going to see at some point someone's going to say like Nancy Lieberman because Vivek, but I doubt that's going to happen. Although there was, I think it was tweeted or in some sort of article that Nancy Lieberman was telling players that she's going to be getting promoted. But whether that's to what kind of role, we don't really know. But I mean, it's not like a promotion would be out of the ordinary for like she was basically the bottom of the coaching ranks last year. And
I
obviously
think
she's been a
yeah.
head coach before, so she deserves to be like higher up than that.
And I think I remember reading like she was talking about for that promotion. It was like director of player personnel or something. It was
Okay,
some executive title.
so maybe working with Peja.
Yeah,
And that'd be kind of good for her to maybe like do something with like the 14th, 15th man and the D League team, because I think she can communicate really well with young players. As she kind of has like a history of that, and she's obviously coached in the D League, so then that kind of helps. She knows about that system, and maybe I think there was kind of an interview with Peja where he kind of talked about finding it really hard to scout for the draft for the D League or like make the picks for the D League because he just hadn't seen any of them. So maybe she's kind of more attuned with that system and kind of help with that. So that'd be kind of interesting as well.
yeah. So I think that's probably where what her role is going to be somewhere in the front office working with Peja.
And that'd be like another kind of big step for the NBA because I think there's less women in front office positions in the NBA than coaching,
Yeah.
considering there's two coaches. So I thought it was funny when there was like lots of drama about the Dolphins maybe having their stadium naming rights sold to Qatar Airways, and someone was telling me like you just can't be affiliated with a country with women rights. You wouldn't see the NFL fire a woman for getting pregnant. It's like, well, they don't have that problem. They don't hire any to start with. They get around that problem pretty easily by just not hiring any of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, easy fix. There you go, Qatar. Free, free. That's free for you. Stop hiring women, then you don't need to fire them when they get pregnant.
Oh my, that's
Uh,
NFL.
is there anyone else you are
Uh,
disappointed they haven't brought up? Is there
Um,
any other coach in the world of the NBA?
well, I mean, maybe Eric Spoelstra's about no.
No,
I
he
think
saw in a playoff game.
I think I mean because one thing we talk is because also I think there's probably some frustrated Kings fans with they'll say it's taking so long, but really Kings are taking their
So
time with this. They're doing their due diligence. I mean, jobs are getting filled up, but really there's still some great candidates out there, despite some of the names we mentioned like Mike Brown and Dave, Brian Shaw. There are some great names out there. So I feel like even if more jobs fill up, like Houston or whatever, that the job's going to become available that or the Kings are going to meet a good job available where they can have their choice of some good picks.
So what's your favorite or you think the most likely outcome?
Well, last week I told you I really liked and thought it would be Kenny Atkinson. Then he got hired like 4 days later. So I'll say first, I will say, I think it's going to be Brian Shaw because hopefully someone else hires him so he's out of the way. But no,
becomes a Lakers joint coach.
yeah. So I don't know. I think I now side with you that it's going to be McHale.
I'm kind of moving to maybe Luke Walton with a couple of other guys as assistants. Um, but obviously, I'll be happy with Mikhail as well. But I think there may be something with just Vlade's history with Walton being a bit more exciting for like the ownership and fans. Um, Obviously, Vivek will also be comfortable with hiring someone from Golden State with his kind of history, so he'll be able to talk with the owners there and kind of get the background on that and maybe be able to sell him as well. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, and I think that would really boost like ticket sales as well, which I don't think they need to anymore. I think they've sold out their allotted season tickets for the new stadium or new arena.
Yeah.
Which is it's a shame that Vivek pulled his appearance at Sloan to talk about the stadium arena. That just came up on YouTube if you want to. Haven't watched it yet, but Tom Garfunkel, the Dolphins president, is on it.
Interesting. So, there was one other note I was going to add, but I'm blanking on it right now. Wow. One more topic for us. So it's been said that Boogie Cousins is not going to have input in this, although it's an odd thing to talk about because he didn't have input in Mike Malone being fired. He didn't have input in
Yeah.
George Karl being hired. So, yeah. So
I guess it's just yeah. They just need to, I guess maybe it's a way of just what's the best way to say it? To kind of illustrate where the power is and just to kind of reiterate stuff, because like media can't really help itself but talk about stuff that doesn't exist. So it's just kind of getting the horse in front of the cart before the cart's flying downhill.
Yeah. That's.
But I think it's in. I do think Boogie's going to stay. I know there's eternal Boogie trade rumors, but I just don't see. I just don't see any team that has enough to trade for Boogie.
Only thing I will say on Boogie is I think if it's going to come down to the coach and Boogie again, this time they're going to pick the coach.
I think they're not going to pick a coach that doesn't want Boogie, though.
Yeah. I mean,
so I don't think it's going to be the same as this year, where I think they're going to go a bit deeper on the coach and make sure that they at least have like some idea about Boogie and how to utilize him, and that's going to be kind of a preference. Like one of the decisions is like, can they get the best out of him? Because it's just short mind. Like you can't make a deal be there. So if you're getting a coach that doesn't want Boogie, then you're kind of already selling him cheap, because you have to open up to trades and there might just not be a trade there, and then you're kind of stuck in this position. And you don't need to trade him. You've got 2 years. Boogie never wants to leave. Like he's never going to want to leave. He's going to literally have to be forced out.
Yeah, I mean, I think. So I mean, the one tough thing about it is like Malone didn't want Boogie at first, so it's just how willing the coach is, and it comes down to how willing the coach is to adapt.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, because I think it's going to be really interesting, but I just don't think you can have a coach that wants us not to coach Boogie, because then you just put the whole team in just like a terrible situation. I think even like not wanting Gay is maybe workable, but still, then you're like, as soon as a coach doesn't want someone, you're selling them cheap, and like Boogie's the last person you want to sell cheap, because even selling him at his price, you're not getting his value back.
Yeah, that's true. So it's what just for the final question: when do you think we see real movement and Kings become close to hiring someone?
Probably after the third round of the first round of the playoffs are done, maybe with the Spurs and Golden State Warriors, so they can get those 2 assistants in.
Yeah. And by the way, since the last time we talked, the Kings got some good luck and they got the number 8 pick. Yay!
The 3-sided coin. It must have landed like upright. That must have been the King's side. I don't think it changes the odds for the coin toss, so all 3 teams have the same odds.
I think Kings have higher odds now.
No, I think they all have the same. It's just if none of them switch places, then that's the order. But they all have the same pink lottery balls.
Oh.
So
good to know.
So it's only if no one moves, but that's still useful for. It means that teams it means that 3 teams from the 11th pick onwards have to get in front of. Oh no, from the 10 pick onwards have to get in front of the Kings to lose the pick. So it
Yeah.
makes it even less of a chance.
Yeah, so it's and NBA draft lottery will be in May. So hope, yeah. So should have the coach by then. And then the draft lottery will be our friend again.
Yeah, and we'll have to. It's not a great class from. At least I've been watching wings. There's like 3 that are good, and one Ingram is the only real good one. I mean, Simmons, I guess, is a wing, but
yeah, it's. Of course, this will probably be the one year that the Kings win the lottery. They jump up to number 1. Phillies at 4. Kings fall back to 4.
I mean, still they're getting to 4 instead of 8. Who cares?
Yeah, that's true. Well,
It's like if they didn't have those pick swaps, they were never winning the lottery. That's just the fact. So, and you never know. Maybe they like go to 1, and like it's more likely that Philly will be at 2, and then they move to 2, and then hopefully Philly takes Simmons, so then you get Ingram, who would be amazing. I love Ingram.
And you save a few extra dollars, so there you go.
I mean, Simmons would kind of still work somewhat, and maybe then if you got Messina and Simmons, he can maybe fix his stroke, and you get like a new Kawhi. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's good old Kingsland where the fun never stops. Yeah.
Yeah. Or should we bugger off and hope?
Yeah.
Please don't hire Mark Jackson or Brian Shaw. If they hire Brian Shaw in the next couple of days, we're going to have to set out a hit for both of your accounts.
Yeah.
Get Twitter to pull you down for spam. Every tweet report for spam.
If Kings, yes, this is going to wrap it up for Sac Off podcast, but seriously, the Kings hire Brian Shaw. The next podcast, just don't let children be listening because there's going to be a lot of F-bombs and drinking and everything. It's going to be bad. So just please, Kings, don't hire Shaw. Like, I'll take Mark Jackson over Brian Shaw. Just please don't screw this up.
So I think with that we should disappear into your day and my night.
Well, yeah, I got to go interview in 20 minutes of the King's job, and then I know you got a phone interview with them, so we got to get prepared.
Skype. Yeah. I've got my emojis laid out for what we'll do.
And I've promised the Kings that if I become coach, I'm going to get more technical than Boogie.
Yeah, I've got to just tweak my 2K playbook to show them.
There we go. It's going to be fun. So, Sacramento Kings, we look forward to hearing from you. And everyone for listening, thank you very much.